For many men, it can be hard to know exactly what role we can or should play in working towards an end to sexism.
Who
the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you?
No, seriously, who are you, dude? And why are you telling me what to do? Are you the king of men or something? And what are you defining as sexism, and how does it manifest itself? Shouldn't women be here so we can look at ways at which they can end sexism toward men? Where are we ending sexism? Egypt? Japan? Your place? And how are we going to end sexism anyway? I mean, presumably this is in between our projects to terminate jealousy and put a stop to small-mindedness. And what's more, what the fuck gives you the experience to dictate to anybody how to end anything? Ugh. What was the question again?
How can men help, and how much or how little should we be helping? In this video, we will explore answers to those questions and share a few suggestions about how men can respectfully approach feminism and, critically, explain why it's beneficial for men to be involved.
Why are you jumbling up ending sexism with promoting feminism? They aren't the same. I mean, don't you see the irony of trying to end sexism by focusing on the perspectives of only one gender? It's sexist. So we could just end the video here at this point.
You lose! Good day, sir!
First things first. Because there's so much misinformation about feminism floating around out there in the cultural ether, it's useful to quickly define what that term actually means. Feminism is a socio-political movement with the central goal of ending sexism and dismantling gender-based oppression. So contrary to common misconceptions, feminism is not about man-hating or female supremacy.
These misconceptions, they wouldn't by any chance be the result of the actions of feminists, would they?
Prominent feminist and journalist Judy Bindel has openly called for putting men in concentration camps and eradicating heterosexuality. In an interview with a group called Rad Fem Collective, Bindel states, I would actually put them all in some kind of camp where they can all drive around in quad bikes or bicycles or white vans. I would give them a choice of vehicles to drive around with, give them no porn, they wouldn't be able to fight. We would have wardens, of course. Women who want to see their sons or male loved ones would also be able to go and visit or take them out like a library book and then bring them back. Go and read her quotes in the full context of the article. She's not even joking.
Hang on a minute.
It's important to note that the feminist endeavor, as it's been defined by women like Bell Hooks, does not simply seek equal access for women within current systems of power, but instead seeks to transform those systems and the values associated with them.
Why should we accept that definition?
So where do men fit into all of this? Well, women have long been pointing out the ways in which men can benefit from feminism, and actively calling for men's participation in working towards ending sexism.
Do men get a say in this?
As Bell Hooks writes in her landmark 1984 book, Feminist Theory from Margin to Center, like women, men have been socialized to passively accept sexist ideology. While they need not blame themselves for accepting sexism, they must assume responsibility for eliminating it. Men are not exploited or oppressed by sexism, but there are ways in which they suffer as a result of it.
Wait a minute, if I'm the victim here, then why is it my job to sort everything out? I'm kind of busy. And also that last line seems like gibberish. Women are not exploited or oppressed by sexism either. At least, not in the UK, 2015. This is the problem. These broad generalizations are weak, because by definition they lack context, and therefore any serious significance. Also, are you planning on providing any evidence for the things you say at all? Or do we just take them on faith? Just asking.
That bears repeating. Men are not exploited or oppressed by sexism, but there are ways in which we suffer as a result of it.
It's still stupid.
We are taught early on that boys don't cry, that to show sensitivity or emotional vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Men are discouraged from practicing nurturing, caregiving, compassion, and compromise for the same reasons. So there is an enormous amount of pressure placed on men to prove our manhood by acting tough, projecting strength, and repressing our emotions.
This sounds like a conversation you really should be having with your parents and or counsellor, not me. Although, to be honest, if I was this guy's dad, I'd probably give him a wide berth.
I would put to the whole world. Give you as only as love me.
This is compounded by the fact that men are often more admired for being aggressive, dominant, and violent than for being cooperative, vulnerable, and empathetic. Not only is all of this damaging behavior encouraged in individual men, but those same values are also reflected in our larger political and military institutions, often to disastrous effect.
No, men are not admired for being gratuitously aggressive, because these things are not good or bad in and of themselves. It depends on, and here's that magic word again, the context. This is like Feminist Frequency's kryptonite or something. The context matters, guys, okay? So aggression in the case of defending your family from harm is pretty good. Against a vulnerable child, less so. The same goes for empathy. Empathy for starving people is virtuous. Strong empathy for a child rapist makes you an immoral asshole. And also, trying to pigeonhole these personality traits into male or female is just unbelievably asinine, and from the point of view of psychological research, just makes you look like a retard.
So while men as a group are afforded gender-based privileges at the expense of women, a byproduct of patriarchy is that it also causes real harm to men's well-being.
Oh Jesus, that was just the fucking preamble.
Okay, so if we're on board with ending sexism, what specifically can we do as men to be helpful? Here's our quick list of 5 tips for respectfully engaging with feminism as men. Listen to women. Now that might seem really obvious.
I don't know what it means. I mean, listen to women. What, even this woman?
What's the matter? I'll tell you what's the matter. I go out of my way for you. I do everything to try and make you happy. I feed you, I clean you, I dress you, and what thanks do I get? Oh, you bought the wrong paper, Annie. I can't write on this paper, Annie. Well, I'll get your stupid paper, but you just better start showing me a little more appreciation around here, Mr. Man.
But far too often, men have a hard time just listening to what women have to say and respecting women's knowledge and experiences. Because of the way we're socialized to think of our voices as most important, men have a tendency to interrupt and interject ourselves into conversations and then to dominate those interactions. This behavior is so ingrained that men often don't even realize we're doing it, which is why it's critical to learn how to take a step back, to try not to interrupt, and instead actively listen and absorb what is being said before responding.
Listen, Spamwise Gamgee, because it's really important that you get this. We should not be interested in listening to people. We should be interested in listening to ideas that are expressed by people. Because a good idea is a good idea whether or not the person expressing it has a penis or a vagina. And men, women, whoever, who are actually interested in being listened to should ensure that they have something valuable to say rather than ponce around policing other people's speech and saying things like, I need more of a platform than you because of my sex organs. That's bullshit.
Now, of course, this does not mean you have to agree with everything every individual woman says. No one person's perspective can ever represent all of feminism or the experiences of all women. It simply means that we, as men, are not in a position to define feminism for women, and that we should actively pay attention to women's voices, because for so long, women's experiences, women's perspectives, and women's ideas have been dismissed, ignored, and silenced.
Yours must be a fairly misogynist form of feminism if it portrays women as so weak and feeble that they require the assistance of men in order to be able to say anything.
It's especially vital to listen to women of color, particularly Black and Indigenous women, because, as feminist scholars have long pointed out, sexism is compounded when it's combined with racism and other forms of oppression. Back in 1989, Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality as part of her theory to describe these layered experiences that leave some women more disenfranchised than others.
So woman beats man, woman of colour beats woman. Presumably woman of colour in a wheelchair beats woman of colour? What about a transsexual woman of colour in a wheelchair? Now they must have something really valuable to say, right? Oh, hang on. I've just spotted a lesbian transsexual woman of colour in a wheelchair with a glass eye. That's basically a messiah to you people, right?
It's important for us, as men, to acknowledge that when we talk about feminism, we follow the lead of women. Yet while feminist ideas do originate with women, that does not mean that it's the responsibility of every woman to teach all men about sexism. So we shouldn't go around interrogating or demanding answers from women. Instead, we should be proactive in doing the work ourselves by committing to continuous, lifelong learning.
Yeah, guys, if you could all please play an active role in your brainwashing, that would make things a hell of a lot easier for us.
Lucky for us, over the past century, feminist scholars have written volumes on the topic. So here are some suggested readings about feminism and how patriarchy operates as a social system. Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks is a great place to start, though definitely put The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love at the very top of your list.
Sorry, have you all got some sort of deal with the Bell Hooks family to keep her personal opinions and literary back catalogue afloat? Although, I guess every religionist has their favourite preacher, right?
Sociologist Alan G. Johnson's book, The Gender Knot, Unraveling Our Patriarchal Legacy, is also essential reading, as well as This Bridge Called My Back, edited by Cherry Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. For those interested in something written in a more academic language, check out Masculinities by R.W. Connell and her follow-up book, The Men and the Boys.
Nice to see you didn't totally forget about academia at the end there, but just for the record, academic disciplines worth their salt do not begin with their conclusions and then work backwards. What you are suggesting is that people accept the premises of feminism and then go away and read biased, one-sided works to reinforce that prejudice. That's fucking stupid.
The place where men can be most helpful in regards to feminism is first within ourselves and then amongst other men. Patriarchy encourages men to buy into sexist thinking and at the very least remain complacent in sexism through our silence. So instead, step off the path of least resistance and dare to make yourself and other men uncomfortable about sexism. Let the other men around you know that their sexist behavior is not okay. For example, when you stand up and say that a sexist joke is not funny, the men telling that joke can no longer be assured that they will go unchallenged the next time they tell it.
Oh, please send me the video of you on the building site chastising a group of 7 or 8 rough working class hod carriers for telling a blonde joke. I mean, please, I would pay to see the outcome of that interaction.
No, he's alone.
In other words, those men can no longer count on other men to accept or go along with their sexism. Interrupting the sexist status quo is a simple yet powerful way that all men can make a difference.
When we started to show Fish Called Wanda, the test screenings to audiences, we used to ask the audiences to fill out what we called an evaluation card. And they would be asked, what do you think of the music? Did you like the ending? And one of the questions was, what are the 3 funniest scenes in the movie for you? And when we added up the votes, we found the funniest scene was killing the dogs. The second funniest was Michael with the chips up his nose. And the third was me dancing around naked speaking Russian. Then at the back it said, what were the 3 most offensive scenes for you in the movie? And the 3 were killing the dogs, Michael with the chips up his nose, and me dancing. So what is going on here? Well, I think when you get into taboo areas, that is areas like dead bodies or limbs coming off or anything sexual, there's always a little bit of anxiety because it is taboo, you see. But for some people, just a few, there's a lot of anxiety. So when the subject is raised, they kind of freeze up and they feel very uncomfortable and they hate it and they hate the fact that people around them are laughing so much and they say, I've been offended. However, most people just have a little bit of anxiety. So what happens if you make them laugh? You get an even bigger laugh than you do normally because you get the normal laugh and then you get the extra energy that comes from that little bit of anxiety being liberated. So you get huge laughs when you deal with taboo subjects. And that's one reason why my humor has a pretty black quality to it some of the time.
If you make a comment and a woman dismisses or disagrees with you, don't take it personally. She doesn't owe you anything, and her disagreement does not necessarily mean that she's angry or frustrated with you as an individual. That being said, it's completely understandable for women to express anger about sexism. Sexism should make everyone angry. After all, most women have some first-hand experience with violence, or harassment, or mistreatment at the hands of men.
Bullshit.
I mean, come on, dude. Do you honestly expect to be able to make a statement like that without citing a fucking source? I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, where is your data? Okay? And harassment, violence, mistreatment, these aren't necessarily things that result from sexism. They could very well result from human beings just being generally shitty. And that goes for women too. I mean, where are the studies that show all the men that suffer mistreatment at the hands of women? Do such studies even exist? Probably not, because who gives a shit, right?
Sometimes even men who claim to be allies. So don't get defensive if individual women don't want to engage with you. And remember that it's definitely not our job to police the ways that women may choose to speak about sexism or their experiences.
Oh, but it is your job to police how anybody with a dick reacts or behaves. I mean, do you comprehend on any level what a ridiculous fuck you are? Let's just spend a few seconds recapping the main points of this twat's argument, right? Gender-based oppression exists, just 'cause. It only seriously affects women, just 'cause. Individual men didn't create it, but it is their responsibility to remedy it. And to remedy it, what we basically have to do is just shut the fuck up. Listen and obey, because by virtue of a person's vagina, they are automatically right and you are automatically wrong. I mean, it is difficult for me to think of constructing a more absurd fucking narrative than that. I know 3-year-old children who make more sense. This is pathetic on a cosmic fucking scale. I guess I just broke rule number 4. Sue me, fuckstick.
Men's support for feminism should not be seen as some kind of favor to women. As we've discussed, dismantling the system of sexist beliefs benefits people of all genders. And moreover, men shouldn't expect a reward for deciding not to participate in a terrible system of oppression. Or, as many feminists have said before, you don't get a cookie for being a decent human being.
You can tell he's only just coming to terms with that, can't you? It's like he clearly signed up for feminism for candy, ribbons, and blowjobs and has just suddenly realized that, hey, all the chicks that are into that stuff are not feminists. Well, apart from the candy, I guess. Some of them like that, don't they? But all joking aside, how much of this video is for us and how much of it's for him? That's the only question anyone really needs to be asking themselves. That's the only takeaway. I mean, Sigmund Freud could make a career out of this guy.
It's really hard to break years of socialization overnight, so messing up is inevitable. I've certainly made my fair share of mistakes. The key is what you do next. We always have a choice in how we respond to our mistakes. So be humble, examine your own actions, acknowledge failings, and continue to learn how to be better and more supportive.
So I guess this is another one of those one-way streets, right? I mean, it's totally unreasonable of me to expect women to support men or to learn from their mistakes, right? I mean, I get that the point of this video is to specifically address men, but at no junction do you seem to acknowledge that when it comes to interactions between people, what matters is compromise. What matters is cooperation and seeing things from each other's perspective. I don't even know if you believe that, but it's fucking true. It's not just woman right, man wrong, woman say, man do. And if you genuinely think that, I have no idea how you can justify the claim you made at the outset that feminism is not about man-hating. Because what you're essentially saying is, yeah, you have agency, but the only choice that really counts is the one that I propose. And if you don't choose to essentially be a submissive eunuch of a man who is universally and consistently concerned with nothing but the feelings of all women, then you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, you're an oppressor. How is that not misandrist? And how is that not about promoting female supremacy? Explain it to me. Because at the moment, all I'm hearing from you is
Asshole mio, oh sada mia.
Sexism is not necessarily something always done consciously. It's something we're socialized to think is normal, and as such, it's something we often participate in without even meaning to. This is why challenging ourselves and reflecting on our own actions is a vital step in the process. But remember to be compassionate and patient with yourself, and keep working at it. This is by no means an exhaustive list of advice, but it should give you a place to start. Now, if you're feeling a little uneasy at this point, that might actually be a good sign.
uneasy. You wish. More like...
As men, the process of honestly re-examining our own assumptions and questioning our participation in sexism will often feel uncomfortable. But remember that even though we as individuals didn't create the system of patriarchy, it does manifest itself in almost every aspect of our lives, which means we do have a responsibility to challenge it. We must always recall our potential for positive impact in the world, and be involved in this work not out of personal guilt or shame, but because, as we've discussed in this video, the desired outcome is ending gender-based oppression and making the world a better place for people of all genders, including men.
That was one of the most pathetic and depressing attempts to jam religion down people's throats I've ever seen. No reason, no evidence, no chance.
You lose! Good day, sir!